Hi, beautiful. Thank you for tuning in. Today's recipe, I'll be showing us how to make sardine bread. To start with, I'm having a milk in a cup, after which I added 2 tablespoons of yeast, mix it together, and set it aside to know if our yeast is still very active. After that, we move on to our flour. This is 400 grams of multipurpose flour. I'm going to sieve it to filter out the dirt in the flour. You remember we are making sardine bread. So we move on to our sardine. We'll be using the oil in the sardine. It's time to mix our dry ingredients together. The first thing we'll be adding to our flour is a pinch of salt. After that, 2 tablespoons of sugar. Then we mix everything together properly. After that, we move on to our yeast. As you can see, to know if your yeast is still very active, when you leave for few minutes, it will have this bubble-like particle on top of the yeast. That is to show you that this yeast is still very active. So now it's time to mix our wet ingredients and dry ingredients together. You add your yeast, the yeast you already mixed, you add it, then you add your groundnut oil or melted butter, depend on the one you want to use. Then you add your egg. I'm using 1 egg for this recipe. Then you mix everything together. When you mix together and you see it has started forming a dough, then you put your dough on a flat surface. Use your hand to knead the dough in order for you to have a non-sticky dough. After kneading your dough for like 10 to 15 minutes, you will have a soft, non-sticky dough. Then you put your dough in a bowl and cover it with anything available. After covering it, you keep it in a warm place for like 45 to 50 minutes because we need the dough to be doubled in size. After that, we move on to our next ingredient, which is the sardine. Then you need to match your sardine. If you want to remove the bone, fine. It is not compulsory. You can use it with the bone. Then match your sardine. I will be adding pepper to my own sardine. That is optional. It's not compulsory, but you can use it. After that, I will also be adding onions, which is also optional. It is not compulsory. This is 45 minutes later. As you can see, the dough has doubled in size. So now it's time to make our bread. The next thing you are going to do now is you are going to flour the wall surface, the flat surface you're using. You are going to flour it. After that, you divide the dough into two because this dough is actually too much to make a bread. So we are going to divide it into two. After dividing it into two, we are going to get a rolling pin, as you can see, and you are going to flatten the dough. After flattening the dough, then you're going to add your sardine and start rolling the dough gently. Add a bit of oil or butter in your baking pan and use it to grease the pan. Gently place your dough in the pan and use your hand to press the dough down a bit. After that, you are going to cover the dough and leave it for another 40 minutes. This is the second batch of the dough. I am using this second batch to make another shape of sardine bread. While our dough is getting ready, then we need to preheat our pot since we are using pots to bake it. So you add a little bit of salt after putting your pot on fire, then you cover it and allow it to. This is the leftover sardine. You add egg white to it and a little bit of groundnut oil. Mix it together because that is what we will be using to grease the dough before baking. As you can see, the dough has doubled in size again. Then you use the egg white to brush it before putting it in your pot. 25 minutes later, you can see our bread is ready. And this bread was so delicious. Apart from that, you cannot imagine the kind of smell in my house. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video.